Tuesday, May 29th, Board of Selectmen meeting, and our chair will be coming later, so I am going to chair tonight. At 7 p.m. we will have community input. At 7:05, Trails Committee. 7:15, the Complete Streets Program. 7:45, Pathways Committee. 8 p.m., Municipal Aggregation. 8:15, the review of annual appointment list. 8:30, the cemetery deeds. 8:35, Town Administrator's Report. 8:45, the Selectmen Liaison Reports. And 8:55, minutes. And God's willing, 9 o'clock, adjournment. So do we have anybody here for the community input?
I think so.
Maureen Dairy. Cosgrove Dairy, right?
Yes. Maureen Cosgrove Dairy, 575 South Street. I don't know if this is the place and time to do this. I was away during the town meeting, but I watched everything on YouTube and all of your meetings before I came tonight. My question, you, Kate, I think, said to the rest of the committee, who does one call if they have a housing question? And no one really gave an answer. So I would like an answer to that, because I have tried to call NOAA, Peabody Properties, the Council on Aging, the Town Hall for 2 years, and I cannot get anyone to answer a simple question. So I would like to know who that person would be.
Okay.
What's it?
Thanks. We will try to get you that answer. Is there anybody else for community input? Seeing none, can we start? We have a couple of minutes before 7:05. Or we can start with the Trails Committee. Do we have everybody that we need for the Trails Committee?
Just Mark, I think.
Just Mark? Okay, why don't we start the Trails Committee then?
Great.
It looks like a pretty simple
Hi,
request.
Mark Lemire from the Trails Committee. So, I don't know if you're familiar with Rodgers Road, which is off of Stern Street. It's a cul-de-sac and it goes through a circle. But part way down, actually after the first house on the right, there's a path that allows you to get over to Vanna Davis. And when the development was put in, I think in the early 90s, the path worked well. There's actually a 10-foot wide trail easement that brings you, I can show you here, diagonally from Rodgers Road to a rock wall, and then it follows the rock wall out to Vanna Davis. Worked great. And then when they put in the development, the water runoff changed for the whole area. And what happened is pretty much halfway down the path, it turned into a very wide watershed area. And I won't call it a stream bed because there's really no bed. The whole thing turned into a wet runoff area. And over the years, we, the Trails Committee, have been trying to maintain it, but it's just getting worse and worse. And when all of this started, we didn't have the funds to put in boardwalks like we do now using CPA funds. And frankly, there wasn't anyone in the neighborhood that was coming to us saying, we'd really like this approved, we use it, and that sort of thing. But that's now happened. So we have a neighborhood that's fairly interested in opening that up. And I'm on the Conservation Restriction Advisory Committee, and we did an inspection of that because that trail easement is a CR. And we basically said, yeah, it's really not usable as a trail really any longer. But there's this beautiful parcel right next to it that's owned by the same owner. It's this triangular piece going up to a wider part of the tail. So Wayne Davis from CRAC approached Dudley Cunningham, the owner, and asked if he would be willing to allow the town to basically create a trail easement that he would give to the town so that it would be open to the public, so we could basically move the trail onto that parcel and make it a viable trail again. And so we're very fortunate that he agreed to do that. He's not getting compensated in any way to do that. He's allowing more of his land, actually considerably more of his land, to be open to the public. And so I'm here to finish the process because we've gone through, our town council, Chris Heap, created the trail easement document, And we've gone through, Mr. Cunningham signed it on the 22nd of May. Comm signed it last Thursday on the 24th, and I'm here with you.
Great. Anybody have any questions? Is there
So I
anybody?
love your signature.
Well, let me just ask if there's anybody in the audience who has any comments or that they would like to make. Seeing none. Can I have a motion, please?
I move we accept the easement and.
The motion actually is written here. Thank you.
I will find it. The first page.
Yeah.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the execution of the grant of easement to the town of Carlisle, acting by and through the Conservation Commission, known as the grantee, with quitclaim covenants, a permanent easement over a portion of Lot 13B on the land court plan of land in Carlisle, Mass., being a subdivision of lots 384, LCC 35673B, Middlesex County, dated December 9th, 1985, and revised December 27th, 1985, and January 27th, 1986, and recorded with the Middlesex North District Registry of Deeds in Book 153 as Plan 86. This grant of easement shall affect the portion of Lot 13B shown as the easement area on the sketch plan attached hereto as Exhibit A, hereinafter called the easement area.
Is there a second?
Second?
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That's unanimous.
Excellent, thank
Do
you.
you want us to sign
Thank
that
you.
tonight?
That would be tremendous, yes.
Okay, can I start over there?
Need to notarize too.
Uh,
You got part of that done tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
I think someone has to go into the next paragraph and put the date in. Kate, Senior Acting Chair, I think in that paragraph it asks who's accepting, if I didn't read it, but,
No, this is a notary.
okay, all right.
Approval of selectmen, okay, this, we the undersigned be a majority of the, meeting duly held on, this up here,
So we need
May
to put the date in up here,
29th,
29
2018.
May.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, and I can just put, comma, chair after my, after the printed name, how's that?
Yep, perfect. Thank
Well,
you.
actually, I need to put vice chair. Well,
Right.
how do, yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm the
That's
vice
okay,
chair.
yeah.
Even though I'm chairing this meeting, I'm still the,
Majority?
Yep.
okay.
That go back to you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's excellent.
Well, we do have 5 minutes before the Trails Committee, before Complete Streets. Do you want to start with Complete Streets? Because Deb will probably
Sure.
be interested in that anyway,
Kevin
so.
and Linda are the only two that I know of that are coming, so we can start.
Is it okay?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Come on up, come on up.
Both them up if you want.
So, Deb Belanger, Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, 45 Palmer Way. You all have been, in this process of developing a policy so that the town qualifies for certain grants that are available through the state. And the gating policy is the Complete Streets policy. And once we have that in place, then we are able to then apply for grant funds in 2 different programs. One is the Complete Streets program, where 15 small projects amounting to a total of $400,000 are identified and prioritized and reviewed, and to the extent the state funding is sufficient to do some of them, fabulous, all of them even better. That's the first part of Complete Streets. Also, if you're a town that has a Complete Streets policy, then you're also qualified to apply for Mass Works funding which has a carve-out for towns of small populations of 10% of the total state allocation for projects under MassWorks, which means we, Carlisle, would qualify with a pretty small denominator of competitors for $1 million in funding for pathway work. So this is the first step. I distributed it, or Tim, did we send out the draft policy?
Yes, the
Excellent.
board got that.
So the policy is pretty prescribed by the state. They would like you to agree to make safety and accessibility a priority if you are going to access their funding. And there are characteristics and elements of the policy that are sort of no-brainers. You know, you read it and you say, yeah, no, that's fine. Where it gets tricky is where Carlisle is uniquely Carlisle, and not a more urban environment. So what you have in front of you is a draft policy on the first few pages, and then following that is each section of the policy compared to what the state prescribes as a model, and compared to Harvard, who implemented a policy and is now in the receiving funds. Harvard seemed to be a good comparison, not perfect, but a good comparison. So this is where we are. The TSAC drafted the policy, took in comments from the Complete Streets Task Force, which includes the Planning Board, the Master Planning Consultant, TSAC, and Pathways Committee. And so this represents everybody's comments in from those disciplines. Our next step is to go to the Historical Commission and to Comm for a very specific focus on one of the paragraphs in here about context sensitivity, which relates to the rural nature of the town and our environmental sensitivities. Prior to going to the Historical Commission and to the Conservation Commission, we wanted to first check in with the Board of Selectmen and not, get over our skis, be sure we're at the, point where you're comfortable with the draft sufficiently to send it over to the other committees, with the idea being we would not be going back to them with different versions. We would be in agreement that this was the version we would like them to review and limit the next round of changes to the areas that deals only specifically with Conservation Commission and Historical. So having said that, did everybody have a chance to read this?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
I had one question, at least, but when you have these points, was there some sort of a rubric there? They said, well, you could have up to 5 points, and you get 2 for this and 1 for that, and when there's, so for instance, context sensitivity, there says 5 points, and it's for, but there's nothing else sometimes, but then for performance measures, 5 points, and then you have 0 points for,
Right.
I wasn't quite sure.
Where these points come from is directly from the state's rubric, and they tell you how many points they're looking for in each of these sections. Some of them have no points, but you need to speak to it.
Okay.
Some of them fall as a subhead to a different section that has morphed over time, so the matrix no longer actually matches
Okay.
the new format.
And
So,
anywhere in here, did you give yourself your own score as to what you thought we were getting at? 'Cause that's what I was.
so that was the next step before bringing it to you, was we sent it off to Tech, the engineering firm, to score it. And the minimum score necessary to qualify is 81, and they scored this at 87, which gives us some room to go to Historical Commission and to the Conservation Commission.
Mhm.
I don't think there are any, the area that, where their interest will be greatest has a maximum of 5 points to start with.
Okay,
So I think we're okay.
yeah. And I would hope, frankly, that they don't throw up too many roadblocks, so to speak, because these roads are going, you can't hold back progress, you can't hold back traffic.
I agree. I think the wording on page 3 of this handout, on the top of the page, context sensitivity, the paragraph reads, if I could do, is it all right if I read that into the public meeting?
The whole thing will be in the public
It'll be
record.
actually in there, yeah, but you
just
want just that top paragraph?
Yeah, that top paragraph, just for a heads up.
Sure, go ahead.
Carlisle is a rural community with a beautiful historic district, open vistas, and many roads designated as scenic roads under General Law, Chapter 40, Paragraph 15C. Accordingly, all proposed projects and improvements will be evaluated in the context of our community character and environment. Complete Streets principles recognize the development and implementation of projects take place in a manner that balances the community's environmental, economic, and cultural setting. The context-sensitive approach to the Complete Street process will include design flexibility that balances the needs and values of stakeholders and the community, and encourages participation by those affected to gain project consensus. The overall goal is to preserve and enhance scenic, aesthetic, historical, and environmental resources while improving and maintaining safety, mobility, and infrastructure conditions. That's the heart of, when Carlisle goes forward to obtain funds for Complete Streets, and we go through the review process with an engineering plan to the Historical Commission or to the Conservation Commission, depending if that's areas where their oversight is present. This is important for us to have the kind of latitude to maintain the sensitivities that are important to us. At the same time, we need to be safe.
Right.
Yeah, and we need to mitigate traffic, and a lot of our roads were, and some of our intersections were designed for horses and carriages that don't make 90-degree turns, which gives you poor visibility from a car. And so, we have to be reasonable.
Right.
Well, I assume that under the design aspects of this, that all the state mandated compliance issues, we would have to comply with whether we were part of this or not.
That's true. There are exceptions, but for the most part, you need to follow on state roads,
Yeah.
state regulations and procedures.
Yeah.
We have many roads that aren't in compliance with the state.
Yeah.
So in those instances, what we do on them is already an exception.
Alan, did you have any?
No, I mean, it seems it's equivocal enough that you can handle whatever comes up.
Yeah. I did have one other question / comment, and that's about this multidisciplinary Complete Streets Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, but this will be a question more for the selectmen than for you, but if we can fold a couple of committees into this and just kind of, and not add yet another committee to our roster of committees, which are difficult for us to.
I think that the committee that's sitting now, the Complete Streets Task Force, is that multidisciplinary committee.
Okay, so it's not a.
And then when we need to reach out to historical or to CONSCOM, we will do that on an as-needed basis. They will not be, there will be situations where their input will not necessarily be needed, or situations where only one of them will be needed.
Yeah.
It almost reads that committee drives the master planning committee rather than the other way around. I mean, how do we keep from, who's got Trump here? I mean,
Yeah, well, I think this is coming out in front of the master planning schedule. So once the master planning schedule is really underway and we're doing that work, then this will come in under the master plan. But right now, there isn't enough scaffolding there.
Right.
Yeah. Try to see if I
And
can-
the total tabulation of points, does that figure into the grant award process as well?
It's binary. You either pass or you don't.
Okay, and it's just pass fail, so all you need is the minimum.
81 or
You
better.
need 81.
Or better, okay.
Right.
They're not gonna ask for our GPA.
No, no. I mean, in other words, you don't get $800,000 if you get 100.
Right. Okay, well, that's good.
So in terms of process, Tim and I are scheduled to go to Comm and Historical Commission on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. This is a Board of Selectmen policy. And so I'm here to get the green light to go to the next round of committees, take comments, make changes.
Where are we going to publish this policy? We have a policy handbook. This does not, is this going to go in the policy handbook? I mean, almost, frankly, it sounds like it should be a planning board policy in certain respects, because it really has to do with land development.
Yeah, no, it doesn't really belong in the selectmen's policy
No,
handbook.
but
It's kind
although
of
it's the
standalone.
selectmen's policy, so, well, and I hate to have standalone policies because they tend to get, you know, lost and not looked at, so.
The state is gonna publish it, as they do other.
I understand, but I mean, just for, I'm just thinking for practical.
Someone knows where to access
So,
it.
Where it
yes,
should live here.
yeah.
Importantly, the state under jurisdiction is looking for this policy to be administered by the Board of Selectmen and not moved to any individual committee. I think that's to keep it intact.
And the training, it talks about training aspects of this, and, I mean, that's, could be a gotcha if you don't do any training, and they
Right.
come back and say, well, show us what you have, you know.
The training modules are also provided by the state, so if we don't do the modules, it's because we didn't ask for the material. So we, you know, this is manageable. We've done some other programs.
But who's gonna manage it?
So TSAC is with, you know, under, you know, Tim Goddard and the police chief and the fire chief, we're taking this on to move it over the finish line so that we can then start to identify 15 projects and apply for money. So it's living with TSAC for now. And then when TSAC needs to confer, it goes to the Complete Streets Task Force and gets the planning board pathway and the master planning coordinator.
So, you don't need any, well,
You don't have to
just
approve
need a-
anything, I
No,
just need-
just a sense of the board.
A
Then we
sense
can
of-
go forward and meet with the
That
other
go
boards
forward,
and get
go
input.
forth, my child.
Right. We will come back with a final draft, and then that
Yeah.
will be, there may be a public forum or a hearing about it, and then this will be implemented. Once this is implemented, well, that's not true, as this is being implemented, we will be already working on the prioritization of the 15 mini projects, so that we're ready and queued up for implementation as soon as this policy goes through. We have a timeline, and I'm not sure, have you?
So that we didn't
No, we
see.
haven't seen that.
Okay, so where we are on this is actually on schedule, which is remarkable. BOS approval of project prioritization plan, let's go back, policy. So we should have a prioritization plan done by the middle of June, which means our policy should be adopted by the middle of June. Those two dates are the same.
So
And
that also
the
doesn't
demerits
slow
we
down the
get for not being able to comply, like where we can't have pathways because it drops off, and, you know, those situations that we know about, do we get, are we at any risk of going below the 81 with what we already know, or we're in good shape?
No, I mean, what they're asking us is to commit to a lens. And, you know, if we commit to that lens and apply it, as we said we will apply it, understanding that we have context sensitivity here and there, we're fine. If this document was primarily context sensitivity, we would not have passed. So we're recognizing and saying we do want safety, we do want to adhere with accessibility issues, signage, connectivity.
Has anybody not been approved for
No.
this? Yeah.
No. Tech is, reviews these in advance to assure that once the tech is signed off, the engineering firm, the state will also.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any drama or suspense.
That's nice.
We're pregnant, we're already accepting money, right? So,
We're only just a little bit.
yeah, just a little bit.
I will leave this, actually.
Thank you.
I have
Well, I assume you have that, right?
I do have that.
You do have that.
I do have, I'll circulate it.
I can't give you my marked up one because I have my notes on it.
Deb, thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Great.
I heard a nasty rumor though, but
What is that?
you're moving.
Ooh, it's true.
What a rumor.
Okay. It's 7:25. Yeah, I don't think we have to wait until 7:45
No, I
for the
think this
Pathways
one
Committee.
does,
Do we, come forward.
Ready? I know.
You know, they just elected the wrong.
Don't do too good a job, you know, Kate.
Get the PowerPoint out, yeah.
Okay, so, the Board of Selectmen probably remembers that there was a public forum in December held by the Traffic Safety and Advisory Committee in response to concerns from residents about pedestrian safety at crosswalks in and around town center, especially on Bedford Road. Subsequent to that, the police chief was able to directly observe some of the concerns. He went out and took a look around and did see some of the things going on that residents were concerned about. And the Traffic Safety and Advisory Committee, together with the Board of Selectmen, determined that it might be a good idea to do a crosswalk safety engineering study to find out what the nature of the risks are and some specific strategies for mitigating those risks at these crosswalks. So, does everyone remember?
I was not a board member. I don't remember.
So that's kind of where
Two out of three of us remember.
Right, so that's where we're at now, and the Traffic Safety and Advisory Committee received quotes for the crosswalk safety engineering work and brought to the Pathways Committee. The Pathways Committee reviewed together and took a vote to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to spend up to $10,000 to go forward and, perform the traffic and crosswalk safety study. It would be at 3 crosswalks, sample crosswalks, so they're on Bedford Road. And the idea is that the guidance that comes out of that study would then be applied to similar crosswalks in town and to any future work that's done to develop pathways and crosswalks. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And I don't know if the quote is from Stamsky McNary. Did everyone get one, or I have a couple of copies.
Yeah, we didn't
Have
get
it?
it. No, we
No,
didn't get
no.
anything in our
I
packet.
have,
this
I think,
was-
enough. You might just have to flip this one.
Decided
So it kind of
Saves paper.
discusses their, some of the things that they would be looking at, some of the suggestions that might be included in, in their assessment.
Didn't Tech say they would cover this as
No.
part of their?
Specifically not.
No, that.
We went back to them and we asked them, would you do this work as
'Cause I
part
thought
of
at this table they said they would.
Yeah, well, when TSAC met with them one-on-one, they said, no, that's not included in the parameters of our offering, and we will give you a proposal, and they did.
Yeah.
And they are starting from scratch, so their proposal came in at $22,000, and because Stamsky and McNary has done a lot of engineering work already on Bedford, their quote is,
It's $9,000.
Okay, so is that why you chose Bedford and not, because I'm just wondering, if this is just like, test cases, why you would do them all on one street? Because I am assuming that the different streets have different
Right, so
natures
these,
of problems.
yeah, so these were the hotspots that were identified. These were
These
the
are the
specific
hottest of
areas
the
of
hotspots.
concern that the residents brought to the public forum and said, we have really concerns about this safety.
It was the library and farther down and.
The one in front of 142 Bedford Road,
Yes.
where there have been, several accidents, and the one by the library, and the
Kimball's.
one by
Kimball's,
Kimball's.
Kimball, yeah.
Yeah, that's where the playing fields are.
Mm.
So the idea is that these are different enough that they were representative of, other areas, so we could apply the work that's done there and we will work with the engineering firm to let them know that that is our intention, so that they'll be able to give us the recommendations in that way, that we'll be able to apply them.
Okay.
we're hoping to learn as much as we can about current crosswalk issues. they've changed in 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, pedestrian safety has evolved since.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a traffic engineer at Stansky and McNary, and I said, how do we make our crosswalks safe? Not safer, safe. And they said, there's no such thing. This is a calculated risk. Everybody assumes their own personal risk when they walk. And that gives you a whole different way to start thinking about all of our crosswalks, the ones that are most distant from town, and the illusion of safety at high traffic speeds and low visibility. So we're hoping to learn a lot, even though we're focused on 3 crosswalks on Bedford Road. I think there are going to be some general metrics coming out of that will help us identify what to do with other crosswalks. We have ones out on East Street that, cars are going 50 miles an hour, so, yeah.
Well, it sounds like the company selling Day-Glo yellow paint is making a mint. Because everywhere you go, everywhere you look.
As part of this, are they going to do any literature evaluation like the Transportation Research Board and things like this? Well, there's a huge amount of data out there on.
Yeah, well, that's why we're hiring a
Crosswalk safety.
professional engineering firm to look at the crosswalks.
That back already. So just to remind the Board of Selectmen, the source of this funds would be existing pathway funds that we have right now. So it would come out of that Phase 1 money. And then whatever recommendations come out of this engineering study, I would imagine if there are construction changes that need to be made, it could probably be undertaken with Chapter 90 funds or some other source. But
Any inkling as to the range of implementation costs? I don't know.
it's hard to say without having completed the work, but I think that this will inform. This work will inform not only these design improvements, but also I think other topics that the Board of Selectmen will probably be facing in the months to come as it pertains to speed limits in town center and things like that. So I think that this work will help inform other decisions that are going to come.
Tim, do we need an actual motion for this, though? Don't we need to move to?
I think it would be helpful. I mean, I think technically the Pathways Committee can already spend those funds that were appropriated years ago, but I think it would be helpful to have the board on record supporting the expenditure.
It seems to me, yeah.
Right. That's right.
You'd feel
So
a lot
that's
more
our-
comfortable that way.
So our recommendation is to expend up to $10,000 to do this particular work.
I just wanted to add one other observation, and that is when we put the crosswalk lights on, the test lights at 142 Bedford Road, that was a test, and we had started out with more noticeable lights, brighter, bigger, and when we went through the review process with the relevant boards and committees, that got worked down to something that was less. And what we know now is that's insufficient.
Less was not more, huh?
So we know, we can consider those lights actually a failed test. So we will not be looking to replicate that without other changes to it.
I was just driving through Acton today, and they have one of these, which is very effective, I think. Person gets there, and boy, you can't miss those lights, and it's clearly, flashing.
It's hard if you're not looking at the road. You're going to miss any light. And we know that people aren't looking at the road. And so other elements to design, such as rumble strips in the road, bumps,
Tacks.
some way to alert the driver to stop looking at their phone and look, because there's something about to happen.
Well, the rail trail, I almost ran over somebody walking on the rail trail crossing 27 because, I knew it was there, but nobody had ever used it until the last couple of weeks. And
Acton did such a better job at Bursaw Gas, where the rail trail crosses the road over there.
Right.
There's lots of humps and signage and stuff, but the 27 out of Carlisle.
Yeah, and there's a
green
lot of
lights.
traffic on there now. It's well used, so, yeah.
All right, well,
Well,
I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve up to $10,000 to the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Committee to look at Stamp Street and McNary's proposal to accept Stamp Street and McNary's proposal to provide a scope of services per the attached memo.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'll give you that back.
Thanks.
Maybe while you're here, Deb, do you want to talk about I have it later in my report about having the Pathways member on TSAC? Maybe
Yeah.
this is while you're here.
Yeah, but, yes, because we're gonna do the manager's report since we're
Yeah,
so
okay.
far ahead. You know what it is our two more people trying to add their 2 cents. That's why we're so efficient tonight. We should have
is a model.
We should be a board of 3.
So,
Sorry.
Pathway committees was originally the pedestrian safety, the Pedestrian and Bike Safety Advisory Committee.
I remember when it was, still that.
Yeah, so you get all those words out of it. And when the Pathway Committee finished its work with Phase 1, it was determined, together with the Board of Selectmen at that time, that pathway work should be, we need to have a project. There's no point in just having a sitting committee when there aren't really any projects going on or issues to address. And so the Pathway Committee became absorbed into a newly formed committee called TSAC, Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. And that is comprised of the fire chief, the police chief, the DPW, Tim, and me as chair of the Pathway Committee representing bike and ped safety issues. For whatever reason, I was put on that as a resident at large, not a Pathway Committee representative. So any resident at large can come to the TSAC and talk to them about issues that they're concerned with without having a Pathway Committee member sitting at the table to talk about the specific pedestrian bike safety issues. We're missing that population. So I wanted to correct that for 2 reasons. One is it makes more sense to have the Pathway on that committee, but also I have a personal reason, which is I won't be a resident of Carlisle. I would like to help the town work on the Complete Streets project and the Mass Works project and see if we can get some funding outside of our tax funds to build another phase. And the only way I can navigate that is if the membership on TSAC is a Pathway member. Does that make sense?
Both of your reasons make sense to me.
Okay.
Well, and Deb has quite a history with this
Pathways, yeah.
town,
Yes.
even as member of the select board, as I recall.
Yes. Yep.
So,
Yep.
back, so, I think like it's,
Would that be all right?
cannot think,
I don't know why not.
Yeah.
fact, I don't see
Sounds like a
what,
good
I
idea.
mean,
We
since
could,
neither Tim nor the police chief doesn't live in town, right?
No.
No.
I mean, nobody lives in town on this committee.
David. Our chief.
And a great number of non-town residents are the ones that are affecting our safety as well, because they're traversing our streets, so I see absolutely no problem with that personally. I mean, maybe we want to add another position or 2 that.
I think it's just, we just want to change that appointment.
So
from
that the
resident at large.
designation is that a Pathways
If it-
committee member will always be part of
Right.
the TSAC.
Yeah.
Currently there
Especially-
is, but down the line, it could be someone else, right?
Exactly. We're hoping to implement a phase 2 to get that underway as part of the master planning. And we have, including Melinda, some wonderful new members to the Pathway Committee. And these are very diligent and thoughtful people. And the Pathway Committee then comes to TSAC and says, these are the issues that have been coming into our committee. And this gives us a forum where you have a little bit more communication, collaboration, and responsiveness, which is kind of the key in the end, is, these things just end up drifting. So I'm asking if we can change the appointment from resident at large to Pathway Committee member.
That would take a vote of that's a change of the, do we need a 2/3 vote for that?
No, I don't think so. When you do your annual appointments at the next meeting in June, you can.
Just do it then.
designate
Just do it then.
Right, right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Where are you going?
Belmont.
Belmont.
Yeah, where the speed limit is 25
Yes.
on all roads except as otherwise posted.
I'm hoping to see that happen.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Building a house in Arizona,
Oh, wonderful. Whereabouts?
north of Scottsdale.
Oh, my God, high desert.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of fun. Are we done?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Right.
yeah.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
before I get up, though, I just want to take 1 second to say thank you to you, Deb, for your willingness to continue working with the town of Carlisle on this important
Absolutely.
project, because your expertise is invaluable to us, and I appreciate it so much that you're going to continue to.
It's my pleasure. This is my favorite place.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want us to stay just so you have somebody here to?
That's okay, we're just gonna shrug on.
Bob will be here.
Only at the
We
top.
gotta keep Bob awake, though.
Yeah,
Thanks very much.
thank you. I'm gonna skip I think we still wanna go to the town manager's report before we skip all the
Sure.
way up to 8, because in case anybody were at all interested about the aggregation,
Yeah, we can.
to make sure that they don't.
In my town administrator's report, we handled item number 1, just with the Pathways folks.
Zach?
Item number 2 is a request to use Center Park on June the 10th for a Race Amity Day event. It was requested by Gina Fox, who was here last time to talk about that, and the board issued the proclamation. And we have talked about this with the manager of Center Park, and she's on board with it as well. So we have a suggested motion. Well, I guess we have 2. We've got a request
Old Home Day.
as part of our Old Home Day. That's Sabrina's request, actually. There are 2 motions to use Center Park.
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the use of Center Park, Lowell Street, on Sunday, June 10th, from 12 to 3 p.m. for the first annual celebration of Race Amity Day in Carlisle.
Have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
And
Great.
Okay.
I move that we authorize the Sabrina Perry to conduct her annual birthday party on Old Home Day at Center Park on, I don't know the date, whatever the date.
It's right here.
June 23rd.
June 23rd? Oh, and June 23rd, from 12 to 3 p.m.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
And is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's also unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, we've been informed by our veterans agent, Ken Boffam, that he will be retiring from service in Carlisle, at least on June 30th. So we'll need to find a new veteran services officer for the town, and Ken has done a fine job for us for several years. And he's going to continue serving the town of Billerica. Evidently, at the Billerica town meeting, there was some kind of a discussion of whether or not the veterans agent should serve Carlisle as well. Well, frankly, we have one single case of veterans benefits, or have had one single case for about 5 or 8 years probably. So it's not a workload thing, but Ken felt that it was made more sense for him to resign as our veteran service agent and continue in Billerica, although I think Ken is 90 years old. I mean, he's,
Boy.
Wow.
been at it a long time. So in any event, we'll have to find someone new. A year ago, when Ken discussed stepping down but didn't, we had reached out to Chelmsford and Westford and a few area towns, but at that time, we couldn't find a town that was really willing to partner with us because the activity level is really so low. And the stipend for the veterans agent is $1,500 in Carlisle, so it's not very enticing to someone who is a full-time veterans agent in another community. So.
If you want, I can lobby Terry Stater in Westford.
Oh, if you could.
We've been very,
What a great guy.
we do
Yeah.
a lot together.
Yeah,
and,
he took a pass last year, but he
yeah, he
would be
made,
excellent.
he didn't know what the workload was.
It's not, it's
Yeah.
not extensive.
Be
Be nice to have.
I'll talk to
Oh,
Terry.
That'd be tremendous.
Good.
Okay?
All right, well, I think we could, do we need to thank,
Oh,
Mhm.
certainly we
Mr.
should
Griffin,
send,
for his
get a
past
letter.
service and accept his resignation?
Sure. Good idea. Will do.
Thank you.
All right. The next item, a number of you have asked about the possibility of town email addresses. And that's certainly a possibility if you do wish to keep your town business separate from your personal things.
You say there is a cost to that?
There's a cost if you want to have access to, like Word and Excel and,
Oh,
the
no.
Office suite of projects.
Got that anyway. yeah.
For some reason, the cost that we're paying is more than what you can get privately, as Kerry investigated. But we can set up, email addresses, no problem at all. If you want to have access to, some of the Microsoft products, we can investigate that as well.
I
If
have
there's
the
a-
Microsoft
I do too,
products.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would like to have the email address, though.
Sure.
Because I
Yeah,
would like to
I don't need
keep
the
my things
Microsoft
separate.
stuff.
Yeah.
I've got that. I've got a site license for that anyway, so.
Okay, I can, and I'll shoot an email to
How do we access it?
Luke and, well, our vendor would create the email address for you, and you'd get a temporary password that you'd
Okay.
Okay.
just
And then-
change.
I think it would be good for the Board of Selectmen in general to have an address that people, I think people don't know where to send things,
True.
Right,
do
we
they
have-
send
we have a
it- do they
general-
want to send it to
At
the
least,
board?
at least if they know your name, they know that it's,
Right, there's
Read
a
K
town
and-
hall,
Yeah.
or K Read and.
town hall email address,
No,
but we
somehow
get
you
a lot of different.
worry about town hall email,
It's not
where's
just
that gonna go,
selectmen.
Yeah.
It's gonna go into,
Well, it goes to Jen and I, so we do see it, but it's not just selectmen-related requests. It's
right.
people that can't find what they want elsewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, somebody might want
We
to
could
just
set up
write
a
a letter
BOS,
to the selectmen,
Carlisle BOS mailbox.
Yeah.
That would be routed to your individual ones as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be good.
All right,
Sure.
good.
Nathan had set up a specific one separate from his own personal one.
For-
And I'd
exactly.
be interested, I'd like to ask him, has he ever had anybody, email him at that address? Because I've never had anybody email me about BOS stuff. They call me, they phone me,
Well, he
We
tries to
get
use that
notes.
when he's emailing,
yeah.
other
Yeah,
people
so
in
that
town
they can
business
reply.
to
Right.
keep it, yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
and,
segregated.
yeah,
Okay. Well, then I'll look into that and the general BOS address as well.
yeah, I have,
Okay. All right, moving on, the planning board has requested to expend approximately $600 from a previously approved town meeting warrant article in support of an upcoming master plan event. And the actual language of the town meeting vote required consultation with the Board of Selectmen before expending any funds. So in an abundance of caution, the planning board reached out and asked,
we
we
know
could,
what master plan event this is?
it's kind of a
Yes.
kickoff, I think it involves,
Are
This
we
is-
invited?
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
we'll see it in the Mosquito probably this week.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well,
There's
so.
expenses associated with that event, and they didn't want to
Monday, June 18th?
just do that without letting the board know.
Okay. It would have been nice to know in advance so that we can get that in our calendars
Yeah.
and make sure that we can be there.
Okay. So, I don't know if we need to vote, I think, the consultation with the board, I think informing you
Well,
is probably.
I think just as with the pathway committees, why
take a
don't we
vote.
have a motion and a vote, and then it's clean?
I would move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the planning board to expend an amount not to exceed $600 in support of a master plan event,
Is there a second?
On June 18th.
June 18th.
Well, we don't need, I don't think we need to know. No,
Basic,
so.
Moved or something.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay. So just looking ahead at the meeting schedule, I know the June 12th meeting, I can't make that, Nathan can't, Alan can't make June 26th. This morning, I emailed back and forth with Nathan. He suggested maybe a single meeting in June on the 19th, perhaps if that was a better date that everyone could make. We could do one June meeting instead of two.
June
June 19th?
It'll be the 19th.
Yeah.
It'll be a Tuesday night.
Instead of the 12th and the 26th.
Correct.
Looks good to me.
It's okay with me.
Me too.
19/7,
I know it was okay with Nathan.
it ever been. He's
He suggested it, so we can check with Luke.
Okay, boss.
So
Well, but
tentatively, we'll
anyway,
make
that
that.
gives us a quorum, even if
Yeah.
Luke can't make it.
Mhm.
And then, so no June 12th and no June 26th. Perfect.
Okay, that's everything in my report, Madam Chair.
No personnel board appointment, or.
Oh, I'm sorry, is there another item in there?
Yep. We missed
We
number 6.
we have a, what's the, yes, it is in there. Personnel Board has met with resident Ben Perry and would recommend that the board appoint him as a member of the committee. I think we've got a bio or information from Ben indicating that he's eager to be appointed. And he does have very good interest and background, and the board, and he had a very good discussion at the last Personnel Board meeting, so we would like to add the 4th member, and maybe we'll pick up a 5th and have a full
House.
house
Yep.
at some point,
Good.
very soon.
So we'll do that when we do the appointments.
Yes.
We don't have to,
Exactly.
we're not gonna act on that tonight.
Right. And even the list of appointments tonight is really for your information. I don't anticipate that you need to take action on it. It's just to kind of see what the
I actually had some.
universe of
questions
appointments
on it,
is.
though,
Okay,
that we
well,
got there.
I think we have to reappoint Steve and Bill Russo.
Yes.
on the trust.
Bill was actually stepping down from a couple of committees.
Mm.
Did he say
Okay.
the trust was one of them, or?
Just double checking it. You have an updated list of your.
Oh, just for your information, Christopher Weiss said that he would be interested, he agreed to, in fact, serve on the celebrations committee, so you might want to put that on
That's
your
right.
list.
Nice.
Great.
That
How do you
was
spell that?
Eisenbies,
I-
Eisenbies, I think.
Okay.
Um,
Celebrations Committee.
Yeah, he was the speaker at Memorial Day.
Yeah, the audit committee.
Trust is a no.
Audit Committee,
What?
Municipal facilities.
Have we met, the audit committee, in a year?
they usually come
I
in
should
here
have
in
asked Deb.
October, yeah, Deb's on it, and Simon Platt usually comes in October to talk about the town audit with the board. He did last fall, I believe.
Mhm.
Okay,
And Kevin Perkins is the 3rd member.
all right. So will we have to find somebody for Deb on that?
Well, there's not a bylaw that states you have to be a town resident to be on a committee. And there's precedent on, particularly on audit committee, that people have stayed on for another year or so and finished the current audit year. Tim
Mhm.
Holt did it when he moved to Concord, and we
Okay,
had another resident
I
that
think-
moved to Acton. So I think Deb would like to hang in there for one more audit cycle, and
okay,
then, yeah.
all right, so I had that question. On the cultural council, it says there's 7 to 9 members, and there's only listing 6, so you need to put a vacant at the end of that. If we could go. FinCom, have we seen anybody interested in FinCom? We've got 2 vacancies on that.
Right. Only Lynn Lipinski wants to be reappointed. There are 2 vacancies. I mentioned that to Jim Dar today, and we're hoping that they can recruit someone, or someone will respond to the notices we put out.
And the land stewardship committee, do we have missions? Where is that?
Oh, I
That-
didn't do the control sheets.
Oh, you didn't do the control sheet, okay.
Yeah, I figured, maybe at our next, well, I guess I'll have to do mine. but-
Okay. I gave you mine back last year, so I don't have them anymore.
I'll do updated.
Let's see. And then, yeah, our long-term capital requirements, I guess FinCom knows that they have to give us some more members on that.
Right, yeah, right. Mayor Mike
And-
Bishop
And Mike Bishop,
is offered
and then we already
that.
had another vacancy in there.
Is Bill staying on that one? No, he's, okay.
He's
Where's
coming
Bill
off
Rizzo's
of,
coming?
the trust. The
He is.
municipal.
Bill was not on that committee to begin with, on
Uh-huh.
long-term caps. Bill Rizzo?
I thought he
He's a
was.
FinCom appointed.
Oh, he was the FinCom appointment?
Well, they
Okay.
have three appointments.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mike is coming off, Bill doesn't want to be reappointed, so.
Okay, oh, and then on MAPC, if we can't find a citizen, I will do that.
Okay. That's good.
Because I think we should have a selectman there anyway, maybe,
Mhm.
I mean, that's
What does MAPC stand for?
municipal.
Metropolitan
Area
Planning Council.
Planning Council,
okay.
yes, sorry.
It's the Regional Planning Commission for the Boston metro
Yeah.
area.
And I used to do it as a planning board member, and it's an important body, and you get a lot of information in. I did miss the last, by the way, I was also on the Hanscom, I said I would go.
Oh,
And then they
the,
scheduled the first meeting, I got a
Committee,
thing,
yeah.
and it was on a night we had a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it was town meeting, I don't remember.
But that
Anyway, I
selectman
missed it.
reached out from Bedford, he reached out.
Yes, he
said
did,
would,
and I-
Yeah.
So I missed that first meeting. And on the Municipal Facilities Committee, we have Nathan Brown as an alternate. I don't know if he's gonna wanna continue as chair, but I was thinking we really probably do want a selectman in that committee for the
Mhm.
first year, at least,
Right,
to ensure that it kinda gets up and running.
right. And we wanted to stagger the terms of that board, correct?
Yes.
So we will have to
Yeah,
create some new
Yeah.
expiration dates to make it, yeah, phased.
So Personnel Board, and, okay, that was it. That was my notes on all that.
Okay, well, we'll bring that back to the next meeting for appointments.
Well, it's almost 8 o'clock. Municipal aggregation. Tim, did you want to give a report on that?
Well, sure, yeah, you've got information in your packet. There was a conference call on the final pricing last week that Kate and Nathan were part of, and Bill Rizzo and Bob Zog from the Energy Task Force. I think the guideline was to select the lowest price, 100% renewable energy supply for the longest possible term. That turned out to be the 30-month term for a Public Powers National Wind product. I think you've got the pricing sheet in there.
Yep.
I think the lowest available price that was 100% renewable was that 30-month wind pricing, which would be, the town's plan would be the default option that everyone would be switched into unless they decided to switch themselves out of it. And there will be a mailing going out
Like,
to all residents this week that explains that process. And I think we want to do a public education event that explains to people that they do have some options. They don't have to go with the 100% green option. They can choose a browner option, I guess, if you will, or a lower cost option, that they're not, they don't have to stay with the default Eversource option, but that they do have a couple of choices that would save money. One would save more money than the other, but they're not locked in to anything that they don't want to be, part of. And that's the message that we want to get across to people. I think the potential savings, the press release says that it's going to be $200,000 in saving townwide for the first year, but I think we figured it was, depending upon someone's usage and so forth, that it was between $50 and $100 a month or somewhere in there. No, a year, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A year, right. The newspaper understated it. and then
$5 a month.
I just overstated it. Yeah, but there are savings. I mean, the value, I think, for most people is being able to choose a 100% renewable product. And the savings are a bit modest, but we are locking in for a 30-month period, whereas the Eversource price will fluctuate depending upon seasonal changes and so forth. So this that's where the savings would be greater when the Eversource price kind of spikes up.
Yep.
The town, the residents are going to be locked in at that point, what, .0198 or what point, yeah.
.10981.
Yes, that's the rate that would be locked in town-wide. So I think it was a good, certainly a learning experience. I think we all learned a lot about the energy markets, and this is something the town voted on at town meeting 2 years ago to be an aggregator of electrical power, and certainly the Energy Task Force has long been promoting greener choices, which are available to people, which was the default option unless someone chooses a different product. We have to do the education piece so that people understand that, so that nobody feels that they've got to take something that they don't want
And it was a good
to take.
preliminary discussion of it in the mosquito last week.
Yeah. I
Right.
think we want to remember that, in 2008 or so, I don't remember exactly the date, this town, as a town meeting in the town, decided to join the Green Communities. As a result, we've already gotten around $500,000 in grants for doing solar
Energy
efficiency things. And that doesn't even count the savings that we've realized from having done those projects.
And bought the streetlights.
Streetlights.
Yes. So I think there was a clear mandate from the town to go as green as possible. Then second then came in 2016, as Tim said, the mandate to go ahead and do the aggregation. And as a happy circumstance, we're able to buy this, or offer this town 100% green energy at less money than they would have paid for the standard option from our
Eversource.
Eversource.
Natural gas, yeah.
So I see what we've done as having executed the town mandate
In a win-win way.
in a win-win way. And in a way that if people need to save even more, they can. If they aren't interested in green, they can do brown.
They can-
You know,
Yep.
it's up to them.
Well, we're getting it at less than what we're paying today, but but more than we would be paying going forward.
Not
Slightly more.
necessarily. Not necessarily.
Well, we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. But I think over the 3 years.
But I mean, it's been, we're comparing,
Or the 2.5 years.
we're comparing what we're paying now to what we will be
Yes,
comparing.
okay, so
and-
for
and that's-
today, we're certainly saving some money. And the betting is that energy prices are gonna go up, they're not gonna go down because of a lot of the
Right, it's likely.
places
That's right.
going out of business.
Demand and
Demand.
supply going down.
So we're buffered for that
Yeah.
30 months. I think it was a good decision. Okay?
Okay.
Gee. I feel like I'm treading water
Lightning
here.
speed, yeah.
Cemetery deeds.
Cemetery deeds.
There's one buyback, I think.
Yep.
Yes. 6, we've already done 6, so we're number 7. Can I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the request from William E. Reeder to sell cemetery deed Lot D 296 at Green Cemetery back to the town of Carlisle for the sum of $200.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Do we need to sign anything tonight? No.
I just do a memo. to
Okay,
town
a memo it is. We've done the town administrator's the liaison reports. I might actually have time, well, I guess I have kind of a liaison report. I am still trying to work on getting the name of a facilitator for, facilitated meeting with the Housing Authority. I sent them the name you gave us.
Jennifer
whatever,
Goldman,
Goldson?
Goldson,
yes.
Goldson.
And another one that Tim gave me. I'm hoping that the Housing Authority will have time to talk about it tonight. If we
Uh.
get out of here in another few minutes, I will run up there and join their meeting
You
and
know,
see where they're at on that.
the housing workshop next week, on Wednesday and
Yeah.
Thursday, she'll probably be there among others that would fill that bill. And I think Mark is planning on at least going to lunch on Thursday, so he'll,
Okay, well,
if he doesn't
that would be
already know
something-
her, but yeah.
That would be something,
I'll be there Wednesday.
okay. Anybody else have a liaison?
I do. The Master Planning Steering Committee met over the weekend at Fern's. And probably, well, anyway, they have cast in stone June 18th, 6 to 8 p.m. in the cafeteria of the Carlisle Public School to have an all-hands invited come and participate in a workshop to brainstorm about issues in Carlisle, what's near and dear to us, what we think the issues will be going forward. They'll break up into small groups and have an initial planning session. I call it an ideas workshop. And so I guess my plea would be for everyone who has a liaison relationship with any committee to let them know about this and make sure that they invite, at least their committee members
Guess that
and
would be
beyond,
another-
because I think if we have 20 people come, it's going to should be able to generate that kind of interest. So there'll be childcare if needed, and pizza if
That'll bring 'em out.
refreshments.
Oh, that's what we need
There we got
the
pizza.
money for.
Yes. So, anyway, that'll be the first kind of glimpse into what's gonna happen with the master plan. Be very important.
Excellent,
Progress.
Yeah.
great. You'll get yours later.
Yep.
Next meeting, we'll be doing liaison, probably.
I know there's other. Center Park has a beautiful relationship with the manager and the town
Okay.
administrator,
Great.
And Jen, too. Yeah.
and Jen
Jen,
too. Oh,
good.
boy, Jen,
That's
all right.
Sabrina
good.
Daly, I think.
Oh, boy.
That's great. And the Deer Committee has posted the final regs on the website, and they're putting application request in the Mosquito, anyone
For
wanting to
deer.
get a license for Carlisle for this coming season. So they're on the move.
Great.
It's done deal.
Remember what the approximate
Eight.
time frame in that is? It's late November or something?
Oh, yeah, it's coincident with the state's
Deer
deer season.
bow hunting, yeah.
Except that it's shorter because the state extends
Yeah.
for
Right. All right.
rifles and things like that further.
I always have to chuckle when we moved to Michigan. Schools are closed on the
Oh,
opening
yeah.
day of hunting
Oh,
season.
yeah, first day of trout season, too. What else?
Minutes. Our last thing, Tuesday, May 15th minutes. Anybody have, I sent my little niggles in.
Yeah, I think I just had one.
I'd entertain a motion for approval of the minutes as amended,
I move we approve the minutes of the
Tuesday, May 15th.
Tuesday, May 15th Board of Selectmen meeting as
Yes.
amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Mm.
I will also entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That was also
A
unanimous.
new record.